facilities.
I think that this attack on Syria is just part of a long legacy of U.S. imperialism around the world and believing that we can dictate and control what happens around the world, and it inevitably always increases conflict, increases destruction, increases death and suffering.
Others say that the protection of civilians should be the priority.
So as far as the strikes and destroying the chemical weapons facilities, I think that's a positive thing if that's harming Syrian civilians. But my number one concern with those strikes is if any Syrian civilians on the ground were harmed or killed. I hope if that happened, that's terrible, and I think that's bad.
And he's not the only D.C. resident who feels conflicted about the strikes.
I have very mixed emotions about it. I think it's necessary. I'm glad that we're trying to do something to protect the people who live in Syria. But I also I am concerned because, bombing things is not necessarily my first choice of diplomacy.
While others here in Washington believe that military action was necessary against Syrian President Assad.
Somebody has to stand up to try to protect the people of Syria, because we have too many children that were killed in this gas attack, and I think it's the right thing.
U.S. Defense Secretary Mattis said that the strikes would be a one-time shot if President Assad does not use chemical weapons again. Many are hopeful this is the case.
Well, it was quite a Friday night surprise of a great magnitude. My hope now is that things don't escalate to the point where cooler heads can't prevail in this.
Trump accused Russia and Iran, two of Syria's main allies, of supporting murderous dictators and urged Moscow to change course. Russia's ambassador to the U.S. condemned the strikes and warned of consequences.
We selected these targets carefully to minimize the risk to innocent civilians. We're still conducting a more detailed damage assessment, but initial indications are that we accomplished our military objectives without material interference from Syria. I'd use 3 words to describe this operation: precise, overwhelming, and effective. Let's go back to the first Barza slide, please. Against the first target, the Barza Research and Development Center, which is located in the greater Damascus area, we employed 76 missiles. 57 of these were Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles, and 19 were Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missiles, or JASSMs. As you can see for yourself from the graphics, initial assessments are that this target was destroyed. This is going to set the Syrian chemical weapons program back for years. And you also note that we've successfully destroyed 3 buildings in metropolitan Damascus, one of the most heavily defended aerospace areas in the world. Next slide, please. Against the second target, the Hem Shinsar chemical weapons storage facility, which is located in Syria just west of Homs, 22 weapons were employed: 9 U.S. TLAMs, 8 Storm Shadow missiles, 3 naval cruise missiles, and 2 Scalp land attack cruise missiles. So this target was attacked by all coalition forces. Our Tomahawks, the British Storm Shadow, and then the French missiles went against it as well. Against the third target, next slide, the Hem Shinsar chemical weapons bunker facility, we deployed 7 Scalp missiles. Again, the initial assessment is that this bunker facility was successfully hit. I'd now just like to talk a bit about the specific platforms that were part of this strike. And let's go back to the first slide, please. The missiles that I've just described were delivered from British, French, and U.S. air and naval platforms in the Red Sea, the Northern Arabian Gulf, and the Eastern Mediterranean. All weapons hit their targets at very close to the designated time on target of about 4 a.m. in Syria, which of course is 9 o'clock here on the East Coast. I'm going to give you a little more details now about the platforms. First, in the Red Sea, the Ticonderoga class cruiser Monterey fired 30 Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles, and the Arleigh Burke class destroyer Laboon fired 7 Tomahawks. In the North Arabian Gulf, the Burke class destroyer Higgins fired 23 Tomahawks. In the Eastern Mediterranean, the French frigate Languedoc fired 3 missiles of their naval version of the SCAP missile. Also in the Mediterranean, the Virginia-class submarine John Warner fired 6 Tomahawk missiles. In the air, 2 B-1 Lancer bombers fired 19 Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missiles. In addition, our British allies flew a combination of Tornadoes and Typhoons and launched 8 Storm Shadow missiles. Our French allies flew a combination of Rafales and Mirages and launched 9 Scout missiles.